Good afternoon, you're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News for Sunday, February 10th. One thing I wanted to talk about from my live stream last night, right after I got done talking about Matt Whittaker, someone with a YouTube account named Matt Whittaker came in and he said, just stopping by to say hi. Matt, if this was really you, acting Attorney General Matthew Whittaker, then amazing. But I tend to think it's just somebody who named their account Matt Whittaker. He's only got 3 subs. But if this is him, Matt, that's awesome. Please, you can email me anytime at redpill78@protonmail.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter at redpill78. I believe that Matt Whittaker actually does have a Twitter account, but I think it's private, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe we'll check that out before the end of the broadcast today. Here is his account right here. It could be anybody named Matt Whittaker, and he has no content, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, but first of all, today I wanted to go over this tweet that Donald Trump just pushed out a couple minutes ago. He says, "It was a very bad week for the Democrats. I agree, Mr. President. With the great economic numbers, the Virginia disaster, and the State of the Union address, now with the terrible offers being made by them to the Border Committee, I actually believe they want a shutdown. They want a new subject." Very, very true. They are certainly pushing for that shutdown. We know that the Democrats are not going to give the president what he wants or what the American people need. So they are essentially forcing another shutdown. When that happens, we are going to be forced to take action. It will become necessary to create the National Emergency Declaration only for optics, okay? We know that the president does not need to declare a national emergency. And, I actually heard a report say the other day that he doesn't want to or he's not going to. But again, that was from mainstream media news sources, and you can't trust them. We're actually going to take a look at the ANON post from last night after I completed my broadcast. All right, so after post 2680, we had post 2681, and it says the countdown has begun. Now, we had that NASA countdown information in post 2679. So T-minus 30, T-minus 45, T-minus 60, T-minus 90. Don't know if those are minutes, hours, days. Blockade removal, Scaramucci model. Rod Rosenstein, removal. Goodbye, number 2. Number 1, oversight of Mueller. Number 1 right now is Matthew Whittaker. Number 1 is about to be Bill Barr. Or, removal. 1 through 4 removal. Barr install. Barr with Whittaker. Review. Rod Rosenstein notes regarding strong reservations to D-class due to sources and methods and foreign classified irreparable harm OIG review prior to executing order. Barr with Whittaker, pull D-class review assignment from OIG. Cite executive order from POTUS does not require special oversight. DOJ, FBI, Ray, fully capable in reviewing and commenting. Regarding OP, original poster, operational integrity, sources and methods, etc., Barr executes order to D-class and provide members of House Committee long-requested supplemental documentation in classified setting, scope memo, and classified, as required by U.S. law. Whittaker remains on DOJ senior staff. Barr meeting Huber and OIG. OIG report. House D's threatened subpoena of Barr and Whittaker regarding declassification and special counsel report, Huber, etc. House D's use subpoena power to something Acts 1, 2, and 3. Spill plus 30. Meeting with North Korea. Denuclearization plan process. Sanctions lift meets subject A, B, food for people aid. UK, Australia narrative shift regarding in-country spy campaign versus POTUS. Hops to 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 to target. So this is the number of hops that they can get when they pick a person that they can spy on. Democrats, sky is falling, push to public, scare to control, projection, public awakening, narrative damage control, placeholders active, wall discussion, end, public awareness of Democrats, red castle, green castle per original plan, dark to light. So this is what's going to be happening here. When we get Bill Barr in there and we have the removal of these last pieces of the blockade. The wall will be built, but it looks like it's going to happen along this timeline. Now, of course, we all know the wall is being built, but we're talking about the widespread dissemination of the knowledge of that fact. But all of these things happening will initiate the public awakening, the awakening of the last of the people who still believe that President Trump is some type of evil criminal mastermind, when in fact it's the Democrats and Hillary Clinton and all of those people this entire time that have actually been the criminal masterminds. This is good news here, guys. Let's go ahead and see what this video shows. All right, so this is, of course, this video will get Donald Trump elected. This video moves me to tears every single time. And if you have not seen this, you must have been living in a hole, but perhaps you've just recently come to the fold. I highly recommend that you take this video and share it with as many people as possible, because it is incredible. Now, remember the helicopter maneuvers that were happening in Los Angeles this week. Just prior to that, there was a P8A Poseidon aircraft that was circling over Los Angeles. Let's take a look at this tweet here. This is the radar of that P8A circling over Los Angeles on February 4th. But on February 3rd, Donald Trump tweeted and said, "Everyone is asking how Tiger played yesterday. The answer is great. He was long, straight, and putted fantastically well. He shot a 64. Tiger is back and will be winning majors again, not surprisingly. Jack also played really well. His putting is amazing. Jack and Tiger like each other." All right, so this was posted at 1:14. Well, the call sign of that P8A Poseidon aircraft was Tiger 14. So Tiger 14, right there in Donald Trump's tweets. Is he calling out the fact that this was time to start the operation? Is it a coincidence that right after that we have the operation in Los Angeles? Now, I suppose the question is, who was that? Who was that operating there? Now, we had confirmation from media in Los Angeles saying that it was our military, but, we don't know who that was, to be quite honest with you. Now, I have heard chatter. Many people have said that it looked like those guys were wearing hazmat suits, that they were carrying something out. Could have been a server tower, could have been, something from a lab. We do know that the gentleman who owns that building has pharmaceutical interests. So they would have the ability to be creating something there. I've heard people saying that one of the deep state's final plans, Plan Z, if you will, was supposed to be a biological weapon over the United States. Now, that's only if they are at the end of their options. Hopefully, that's not the case, but if that was, and it was our guys carrying that out, that's very cool. We still don't know, though. Everything I say is speculation. I'm just spitballing. I like to think about this stuff, and I like to hear what you guys think, too. So let me know in the comments below. All right, next, in another article from my friend Rosanna on Twitter, The Case for Russian Collusion Against the Democrats by the incomparable John Solomon. Now that both the House and Senate have cleared Donald Trump of Democrat-inspired allegations of Russian collusion, it is worth revisiting one anecdote that escaped significant attention during the hysteria, but continues to have U.S. security implications. As Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton worked with Russian leaders, including Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and then-President Dmitry Medvedev, to create U.S. technology partnerships with Moscow's version of Silicon Valley, a sprawling high-tech campus known as Skolkovo. Clinton's handprint was everywhere on the 2009-2010 project, the tip of a diplomatic spear to reboot U.S.-Russian relations after years of hostility prompted by Vladimir Putin's military action against the former Soviet Republic and now U.S. ally, Georgia. A donor to the Clinton Foundation, Russian oligarch Viktor Vekselberg led the Russian side of the effort, and several American donors to the Clinton charity got involved. Clinton's State Department facilitated U.S. companies working with the Russian project, and she personally invited Medvedev to visit Silicon Valley. The collaboration occurred at the exact same time Bill Clinton made his now infamous trip to Russia to pick up a jaw-dropping $500,000 check for a single speech. The former president's trip secretly raised eyebrows inside his wife's State Department internal emails show. That's because he asked permission to meet Vekselberg, the head of Skolkovo, and Arkady Dvorkovich, a senior official at Rosatom, the Russian nuclear giant seeking states' permission to buy uranium-1. A U.S. company with massive uranium reserves. Years later, intelligence documents show both the Skolkovo and Uranium-1 projects raised serious security concerns. In 2013, the U.S. military's leading intelligence think tank in Europe sounded the alarm that the Skolkovo project might be a front for economic and military espionage. Skolkovo is an ambitious enterprise, aiming to promote technology transfer generally by inbound direct investment and occasionally through selected acquisitions. As such, Skolkovo is arguably an overt alternative to clandestine industrial espionage, with the additional distinction that it can achieve such a transfer on a much larger scale and more efficiently, EUCOM's intelligence bulletin wrote in 2013. Implicit in Russia's development of Skolkovo is a critical question, a question that Russia may be asking itself. Why bother spying on foreign companies and government laboratories if they will voluntarily hand over all the expertise that Russia seeks? A year later, the FBI went further and sent letters warning several U.S. technology companies that they had become entangled with Skolkovo, that they risked possible espionage, and an agent in the Bureau's Boston office wrote an extraordinary op-ed to publicize the alarm. Skolkovo may be a means for the Russian government to access our nation's sensitive or classified research development facilities and dual-use technologies with military and commercial application, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Lucia Ziobro wrote in the Boston Business Journal. The FBI had equal concern about Rosatom's acquisition of Uranium-1. An informer named William Douglas Campbell had gotten inside the Russian nuclear giant in 2009 and gathered evidence that Rosatom's agents in the United States were engaged in a racketeering scheme involving kickbacks, extortion, and bribery. Campbell also obtained written evidence that Putin wanted to buy Uranium-1 as part of a strategy to obtain monopolistic domination of the global uranium markets, including leverage over the U.S. Campbell also warned a major in-kind donor to the Clinton Global Initiative was simultaneously working for Rosatom while the decision for U.S. approval was pending before Hillary Clinton's department. Ultimately, her department and the Obama administration approved the transaction. The evidence shows the Clintons financially benefited from Russia, personally and inside their charity. At the same time, they were involved in U.S. government actions that rewarded Moscow and increased U.S. security risks. The intersections between the Clintons, the Democrats, and Russia carried into 2016 when a major political opposition research project designed to portray GOP rival Donald Trump as compromised by Moscow was launched by Clinton's presidential campaign and brought to the FBI. Glenn Simpson's Fusion GPS research firm was secretly hired by the Clinton campaign and Democratic Party through their law firm Pkwy. Simpson then hired retired British operative Christopher Steele, whom the FBI learned was desperate to defeat Trump, to write an unverified dossier suggesting that Trump's campaign was colluding with Russia to hijack the election. Simpson, Steele, and Pkwy all walked Trump-Russia-related allegations into the FBI the summer before the election, prompting agents who openly disliked Trump to launch a counterintelligence probe of the GOP nominee shortly before Election Day. Simpson and Steele also went to the news media to air the allegations in what senior Justice Department official Bruce Orr would later write was a Hail Mary effort to influence the election. Congressional investigators have painstakingly pieced together evidence that shows the Clinton Research Project had extensive contact with Russians. Orr's notes show that Steele's main source of uncorroborated allegations against Trump came from an ex-Russian intelligence officer. Much of the collection about the Trump campaign ties to Russia comes from a former Russian intelligence officer, question not entirely clear, who lives in the U.S., or scribbled. Steele's dossier also relied on information from a Belarus-born Russian businessman, according to the numerous reports and a book on the Russian scandal. Steele and Simpson had Russian-tied business connections too, while they formulated the dossier. Steele worked for the lawyers for Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska and tried to leverage those connections to help the FBI get evidence from the Russian aluminum magnate against Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. The effort resulted in FBI agents visiting Deripaska in fall 2016. Deripaska told the agents that no collusion existed. Likewise, Simpson worked in 2016 for the Russian company Poseidon, which was trying to escape U.S. company penalties, and one of its Russian lawyers, Natalia Veselnitskaya. In sworn testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Simpson admitted he dined with Veselnitskaya both the night before and the night after her infamous meeting with Donald Trump Jr. at Trump Tower in June 2016. Simpson insists the two dinners, sandwiching one of the seminal events in the Trump collusion narrative, had nothing to do with the Trump Tower meeting, a claim many Republicans distrust. Whatever the case, there's little doubt the main instigators of the Clinton-inspired allegations against Trump got information from Russians and were consorting with them during the political opposition project. This past week, we learned from Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr that his committee came to the same conclusion as the House. There is no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. But now there is growing evidence of Democratic connections to Russia. It's enough that former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes believes a probe should be opened. There is obvious collusion the Democrats had through Glenn Simpson and through Fusion GPS that they were talking directly to Russia, Nunes told Hill TV's Rising in an interview to be aired Monday. Collusion can be criminal if it involves conspiracy to break federal laws, or it can involve perfectly legal, unwitting actions that still jeopardize America's security against a frenemy like Russia. There is clear evidence now that shows Hillary Clinton's family and charity profited from Moscow and simultaneously facilitated official government actions benefiting Russia that have raised security concerns. And there's irrefutable evidence that her opposition research effort on Trump, one that inspired an FBI probe, was carried out by people who got information from Russia and were consorting with Russians. It would seem those questions deserve at least some of the scrutiny afforded the Trump-Russia collusion inquiry that is now 2+ years old. Excellent article from John Solomon, and he lays it on the line. Based upon the flimsy evidence we had against President Trump and his family and their connections to Russia, and considering the strong connections between the Clinton campaign, the DNC, the Clinton Global Initiative, the Clinton Foundation, Bill, Hillary, Chelsea, all of them, and the agencies that they hired to go after Trump, all of their connections to Russia. Based upon the evidence that it took to get this 2+ year long investigation against our president, I believe that a probe or some type of investigation needs to be done, and based on the fact that Bill Barr is a fair and equal hand of justice, I think that perhaps there will be. We're just going to have to wait to see. Next, in an article from the Daily Caller, President Trump says open borders could attract 42 million Latin American immigrants. President Donald Trump defended his plan to build a southern border wall on Twitter Sunday by citing the CEO of Gallup, who wrote that open borders could potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans on Friday. Gallup poll stated that open borders will potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans. This would be a disaster for the U.S. We need the wall now, Trump wrote on Sunday. Gallup chairman and CEO Jim Clifton published a blog Friday titled, "What if there were 42 million at the border?" Rather than find a solution for the several thousand potential immigrants currently at the border, let's start by answering the bigger, harder question. What about the 42 million who would like to come, Clifton wrote. What is the message to those millions who seek entrance either legally or illegally? What should we tell them? Gallup's Migration Research Center polled adults in Latin America, which is made up of 33 countries, some of which are in the Caribbean. 27% said they wanted to leave their country permanently, and 35% of those wanted to move to the U.S. This Gallup Analytics estimate is that 42 million want to come to the U.S., Clifton wrote. 42 million seekers of citizenship or asylum are watching to determine exactly when and how is the best time to make the move. This suggests that open borders could potentially attract 42 million Latin Americans. A full 5 million of who are planning to move to the next 12 months say that they are moving to the U.S. Trump has promised to build a southern border wall since his 2016 campaign. His wall talk comes on the heels of historically long partial government shutdown over border wall funding. Now another shutdown could be on the horizon as Democrats and Republicans continue to struggle to find a compromise ahead of a February 15th deadline. Trump has accused Democrats of being against border security for refusing to fund a border wall. I think it's obvious that they are. Now, 42 million Latin Americans making their way to the U.S. would be devastating. Devastating for our country. This cannot be allowed to happen. The wall must be built. We already know that it is being built, but it needs to be finalized. It needs to be completely erected across our southern border. And this article right here perfectly underscores the reason why. Now, in a follow-up to my live stream news about Jeff Bezos the other night, the attorney from the National Enquirer says that Saudi Arabia and Trump were not behind the Bezos story. This is extremely important because it underscores the reason why they asked Jeff Bezos to admit that this was not a politically motivated article. An attorney for the company representing the National Enquirer denied rumors Sunday that President Donald Trump and elements inside Saudi Arabia were behind a leak of embarrassing information about Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. It was not the White House, it was not Saudi Arabia, and the libel going out there slamming AMI was this was a hatchet job by a foreign nation or somebody politically motivated in this country. Elkin Abramovitz, an attorney representing American Media Incorporated, told ABC's George Stephanopoulos about rumors that Trump asked the paper to dig up dirt on Bezos. It's a news decision to decide how long you can go with the same story so that each side, it was part of a legitimate negotiation, he said. Each side had something that they wanted. It's absolutely not a crime to ask somebody to simply tell the truth. Tell the truth that this was not politically motivated, and we will print no more stories. Abramovitz's comments come 2 days after Bezos accused National Enquirer's parent company of trying to blackmail him with lewd photos of him and his mistress Thursday evening. The billionaire media mogul pointed out AMI head David Pecker's connections to President Donald Trump in a statement released Thursday on Medium. He also pointed to owning The Post and their coverage of the murder of Jamal Khashoggi as potential reasons people could be targeting him. And there he is with his now soon-to-be ex-wife. AMI's attorney's remarks also come after the National Enquirer posted erotic text messages sent between him and his mistress, Lauren Sanchez, in January. In response, Bezos hired consultant Gavin DeBecker to investigate how the National Enquirer obtained those text messages. Bezos currently has a net worth of around $137 billion, the highest figure ever recorded. The couple seemed headed for an amicable split, and on January 24th, a report from People magazine suggests he is preparing to move in with Sanchez. This, again, will be the largest divorce settlement in history. This woman will get everything she ever wanted and more, and Jeff Bezos is a fool for doing this. He is going to lose half of his fortune, and I hope that this woman gets an equitable settlement. And here's a little tidbit from Crazy Days and Nights. And I should mention this is a tip sent over by no one else but my own loving mother, who watches my show, backing up AMI's assertions that this is not politically motivated and it's not the Saudis either. NT Lawyer said on the 31st, he may not want to believe it, but this very wealthy man who will be less wealthy after his divorce should look no further than the woman who is currently sharing his bed as the source of the leak that brought down the wealthy man's marriage, revealed to be Jeff Bezos. So it looks like Jeff Bezos' mistress is the one who actually leaked the information, the private texts and photographs. And it makes sense that she would do that because that means that his marriage would be dissolved and he would have no choice but to be with her. Makes you think. Now, lastly, in a thread from Corey Lynn at Corey's Digs, this is in regards to Obama's counter-propaganda bill. It starts out, in case you missed Obama's counter-propaganda bill he signed before stepping out of office, this was the press release. Next post will cover this in more detail. Basically, it includes funding from the government to outside companies such as Obama's OFA. She says Organized for Action, but I could have sworn it was Obama for America. Maybe they changed the name. Let's see. Here is the press release. Today, U.S. Senators Rob Portman and Chris Murphy introduced legislation to help American allies counter foreign government propaganda from Russia, China, and other nations. Specifically, the bill will improve the ability of the United States to counter foreign propaganda and disinformation by leveraging existing expertise and empowering local communities to defend themselves from foreign manipulation. In order to improve our response to foreign propaganda and disinformation, we need a comprehensive strategy. We have to delegitimize false narratives coming out of Russia, China, and other nations, and increase access to factual information, said Portman. By directly countering false narratives and empowering local media and civil societies to defend themselves from foreign manipulation, this legislation will help support our allies and interests in this increasingly unstable world. This bill underscores the United States' commitment to protecting the freedom of the marketplace of ideas on the international stage. I'm proud to join my colleague, Senator Murphy, on this bipartisan effort. A hallmark of democracy is the free flow of accurate, uncensored information, but many nations today are bombarded by foreign propaganda and manipulated information. This disinformation is often intended specifically to undermine the United States, our allies, our interests. Keeping America safe requires us to adapt alongside the threats we face, and right now, we're too slow to adapt the disinformation campaigns of our adversaries and our competitors. The Countering Foreign Propaganda and Disinformation Act would ensure America's national security infrastructure helps counter the false narratives that harm our security, delivering truthful information and making the world a safer place for the United States and our allies. And she says, or to put it another way, we are paying for Obama's scheming against our president because that's what he's been doing with OFA. The last two paragraphs are particularly interesting. This man is slime. He needs to be shut down. All right, here is more information on the act. It basically summarizes the information in the press release from above. Basically, the Obama administration outlined with this bill giving money to organizations like OFA so that they can produce their own propaganda. Here we go. We're Organizing for Action. So this is a different organization right here. It's Organizing for Action. I typed it incorrectly in number 1. Let me backstep a minute. I do need to research and see if funds are still going to him and exactly where they are coming from. But the bill was set up for NGOs, and a lot of his buddies are working with him on these strategies against our president and government. This is apparently his most recent scheming. Representative Steve Scalise just sent out an email out stating Barack Obama just made his move, revealing his scheme to interfere in the 2018 midterms. Obama is scheming to redraw district maps to erase Republicans. His political machine has released a hit list of 27 held seats. Corey says, well, I would say OFA sure took in quite a large sum in 2014 and 2015 while he was still in office. Total revenue was $9,509,251. Wow. In 2014, over $14 million. Of course, Pkwy is listed as an independent contractor, but then we already knew that. Nothing new here. Of course, Pkwy being Obama's law firm, Hillary's law firm, the DNC's law firm. 12,653 volunteers in 2014 for their little countrywide adventure, with a lot of coin from contributions and grants. I wonder how many brainwashed volunteers they now have. This is their tax information right here. 12,000 volunteers. Wow. Here is a glance of some donors from 2014. David Shaw, Amy Goldman Fowler, Ryan Smith, John Goldman, Mark Gallagly, Kenneth Levine, John Stryker, Lori Woods, Barbara Grassici, William H. Freeman, Sandra McNeil Rogers, Anthony P. Crabb, Wayne Jordan, Marcia Goldman, Paul Boskind. Obama-aligned Organizing for Action relaunches for Trump. Obama-aligned Organizing for Action relaunches for Trump era. After a long period of withdrawal from the public eye, Organizing for Action, the political group that grew out of Barack Obama's first presidential campaign, is ramping back up for the Trump era with a focus on defending the Affordable Care Act and training grassroots organizers, officials tell NBC News. So basically, they put it back together. They got the old group back together, and they used it as a machine to combat Trump and put Obama's initiatives and ideas back on the center stage. So this is basically Obama funding the propaganda to fight Trump and go after the things that they see happening in the world that they don't want to be taking place. They knew that Trump was going to unravel all of the things that they put together, and he was going to create a new world without Obama and Hillary in office. So we need to keep an eye on OFA, and we need to keep an eye on where that money is going. All right, everyone, I want to thank you once again for joining me. As always, I am Red Pill 78, the corruption detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.